A few days ago, I was in a message board discussion in a closed group of just immigration lawyers. Some of the best immigration lawyers in the country were engaged in this discussion, and we were talking about ways in which Trump can unilaterally stop the flow of legal immigration in the US. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. And for those of you who are thinking, but hey, in his campaign rallies, he just says he wants to deport all the criminal illegals. Well, that's not actually true. He wants to slow down the flow of all immigration into the United States, and that was clear the last time he was president, and it will become clear very quickly again this time that he's president. For all of you who are going to comment and say this is purely speculative, let me just start by saying you're right. This is speculation, but it's based on things that he's actually said, the people he's putting in place to implement these procedures, and based on things he did last time around. So we're going to start mostly by talking about what he did last time around, because I think it's a good indicator of where he's at this time around, and I personally think that he's going to take it much further this time around. One of the things that really slowed immigration down last time around was this concept of extreme vetting and interviewing each individual person. So typically, when a family, like a mother, father, and two kids apply for permanent residence, it's common for their applications to be reviewed together. It's much faster, and it's a great way for the government to properly focus their energy. So one thing that Trump did was he stopped this policy, so a mother, father, and two kids would be viewed as 4 individual unrelated applications, dramatically increasing how long it takes for each application to get approved. It also led to weird outcomes where the father will become a permanent resident like a year before one of the kids or at a different time than the mother. So it led to weird outcomes in the family dynamic. One of the other things that recently happened under the Biden administration is for marriage-based green cards, oftentimes interviews were waived. The immigration officer had the right to say, you guys submitted enough evidence that your marriage was entered into in good faith. I don't need to speak with you guys because you gave me an overwhelming amount of documents showing that this is clearly a good faith marriage. And in that case, the cases would proceed much faster and you would just end up getting an approval notice in the mail. Or if you didn't submit enough evidence, you would receive a request for evidence in the mail where you have an opportunity to supplement it. Or in some cases, you would actually get scheduled for an interview. We expect that to completely end under Trump, where every applicant for a green card, whether it's family-based or employment-based, is going to be scheduled for an interview. And this is going to dramatically slow down processing times. So right now, for example, for a marriage-based green card, we're seeing processing times depending on the exact circumstances and location, the city you're in the United States. Processing times can be like anywhere from 6 months, start to finish, sometimes faster, to 18 months. Pretty wide range, but I'm seeing a lot of mine approved in under a year within the last few years. Under Trump, we can expect those processing times to double, sometimes even triple. Naturalization is a good example. So when you apply for citizenship right now, start to finish in a lot of the country, you're seeing 6 months, which is a really fast processing time. Historically, I think in Seattle, during the end of Trump's last presidency, some people were seeing 24-month processing times. And by the way, those backlogs from Trump's last presidency haven't fully been resolved today in some parts of the United States. And I can only imagine how bad the backlogs are going to get after his next presidency. I feel really bad for people who are consular processing. You hear all of these like MAGA Republicans saying, I'm not against immigration, I'm against illegal immigration. So the presumption here is that they want you to enter the US legally. And when you're consular processing, that means a US family member petitions for you while you're living abroad, you wait, you're scheduled an interview which you attend at the consulate in your home country, and after you get approved, you legally enter the US. But the last time Trump was president, all of the resources of the Department of State were effectively gutted, and the Department of State, which is in charge of these consular offices abroad, had very little resources, and cases were taking an extraordinary amount of time. A case that might have taken like 12 months from start to finish could sometimes take 2.5 or 3 years. And oftentimes those people didn't enter the United States until Trump left office. So all these people who are trying to legally migrate under the acceptable laws that we all agreed on, they're not going to be able to do it in a timely fashion, and our broken immigration system is only going to be further broken by some of these policies. One of the things that Trump did during his last presidency for the green card process was he created a new form, the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. The idea behind the form wasn't a terrible idea. It basically wanted immigrants to prove that they weren't going to become a public burden. But the way it was implemented was improper in a bunch of ways, and it was ultimately struck down by a court. So a question that came up in this message board amongst immigration lawyers was, is he going to just come up with random stuff like that like on day one? And the best answer was he can't. New forms have to generally go through the rulemaking process, which has like a comment period, and it takes several months for a new form to go into effect. So he can't do that on day one. That'll take some time, although he can eventually do it. But something he can do on day one, and that happened last time randomly, was like the addition of different forms will randomly change, where USCIS says like, today we created a new version of this green card form. We're gonna reject every version of this form that was submitted except this one starting today. No notice, you just have to comply. And then like as an immigration lawyer, we got in a lot of trouble with our clients because they're paying us to properly submit the forms. And like I mail out a form today, and by the time it arrives at USCIS, it's outdated. And then we get a rejection notice, and the client gets a rejection notice saying your form you submitted is outdated and improper. And it's like a very boilerplate language that makes it look like we were completely incompetent. But in reality, the forms were just randomly changed, and sometimes they even gave us like 2 weeks to begin using the new form, but they would still reject the forms before those 2 weeks. So it was just lots of random rejections of forms was quite normal during Trump's last presidency. Another thing that happened is forms like the asylum application would just randomly get denied if you left blank spaces, which the form allows you to do. Like some of the questions are like only answer this if it's applicable. And if you leave it blank, it means it's not applicable. But asylum applications got denied for having any blank spaces. Not just asylum applications, by the way. Some other applications got denied as well. And so we had to go in and just like with a marker or pen, write NA in all of the empty boxes. It's just like random things like that to slow down the immigration process as much as possible and make it as hard as possible for immigrants to apply for the benefits that the law allows them to apply for. All right, guys, thank you for letting me rant a little bit about this. I am not looking forward to the next 4 years as far as immigration policy is concerned. I think it's just gonna be a really hard time for all immigrants, legal or not. But I feel really bad for the people who are trying to do things the right way, legally, because they're going to end up getting screwed as well from a lot of these policies. If you're new to my channel, my name is Pouyan Darian. I'm an immigration lawyer. I put out a lot of content on family-based immigration and naturalization. If you need an attorney to assist you through any of these processes, please reach out. I'm available. Schedule a consultation, and I'll talk to you soon.